Welcome to the Friday Spotlight Energy Report for October 15th, 2010. Hosted by Jed Knudsen, Julia Batchison, and Jen Tarasevich. Here is Julia with this week's major headlines.
Thanks, Jed. On Tuesday, Interior Secretary Ken Salazar announced that the deepwater oil drilling moratorium was being lifted by the Obama administration. This ends the 6-month moratorium Secretary Salazar issued in June, following the BP Deepwater Horizon rig explosion in the Gulf of Mexico. Secretary Salazar stated, "There will always be risks associated with deepwater drilling. We have reached a point where we have significantly reduced those risks." As soon as the announcement was made, reactions both for and against the moratorium were issued. Representative Edward J. Markey, leader of spill disaster-related hearings, supported the ban lift. He said, "This deepwater drilling suspension was always about keeping the Gulf workers and waters safe from another spill, and it has been effective in doing so." Regarding the new regulations, Representative Markey stated, "The new rules that the Interior Department has issued will help ensure that if oil companies are going to drill ultra-deep, they are going to do so in a manner that is ultra-safe." The American Petroleum Institute was also pleased that the moratorium was lifted. The group called for additional resources and a serious commitment by the government to process and approve permits and other requirements expeditiously to avoid a de facto moratorium from occurring. Speaking out against the end of the moratorium were both Greenpeace and the Natural Resource Defense Council. Greenpeace said that the move was pure politics of the most cynical kind. Peter Lehner of the NRDC responded, "To ensure a disaster like this never happens again, we must know what caused it in the first place. We're still waiting for that answer, and until we get it, the moratorium should remain in place." While the United States was lifting its deepwater drilling ban, the European Union was considering declaring one of its own. The suggested ban would be voluntary and would be in place until the inquiry over the Gulf of Mexico is completed. The voluntary ban being proposed by the European Commission relates to drilling within extremely deep waters and areas that are environmentally sensitive, such as the Arctic. The top offshore oil producer in China, Sinopec Limited, agreed to purchase a 33% stake in a U.S. gas and shale oil field in South Texas, owned by Chesapeake Energy Corporation. This is the first attempt by Sinopec to acquire U.S. assets since its offer to purchase Unocal was blocked in 2005. If successful, this may be the first of many acquisitions Sinopec will make in the United States to meet production growth targets. The integrity of some congressional staffers has been called into question due to some interesting stock investments that they have been making. These staffers have been using knowledge gained through avenues like renewable energy legislation or direct knowledge of organizations that their bosses oversee. While no laws have technically been broken, the government is now frowning upon them. Senate Majority Leader Reid's key energy policy advisor, Chris Miller, almost doubled the investment that he made in an energy company. That very same company benefited largely from the legislation that Reid played an integral part in getting passed. Miller himself did not influence the tax incentives, but he was privy to information that the average investor would not have access to. Senator Reid stated that Mr. Miller had shown poor judgment in making this investment. It is estimated by the Wall Street Journal that 72 aides have made investments in companies overseen by their bosses. Of course, these same aides are claiming that the investments made had nothing to do with the knowledge gained while serving in their role as a Congress aide. Now over to Jed for our top energy news stories in the United States.
Thanks, Julia. Interior Secretary Ken Salazar remains in the spotlight this week as he has approved yet another major solar project in California. The latest project is a 3,471-acre solar energy farm for Ivanpah Valley in California. The project is expected to produce about 400 megawatts and will consist of 173,500 solar mirrors. Secretary Salazar's lawyers have asked a New Orleans federal judge to dismiss an oil industry lawsuit that is challenging the legality of the lifted deepwater drilling moratorium. With the ban being lifted, the plaintiffs' complaints are now moot. Google continues its effort to extend its reach into different industries and make the world a better place while doing so. Google has made yet another significant investment in the renewable energy world by once again diving into the wind sector. The latest project is a $5 billion offshore wind farm on the Atlantic coast, of which Google is reported to have as much as a 37.5% stake. IKEA is no stranger to renewable energy, and the company recently announced that it would be installing approximately 20,000 solar panels on some of its California stores. The installations are expected to generate 6.65 million kilowatt hours in total. IKEA is already using solar power at some form in stores in 6 other states and recently incorporated geothermal energy into a store being constructed in Colorado. Now over to Jen with more energy news from around the world.
Thanks, Jed. At the December 2009 UN summit held in Copenhagen, rich countries agreed to provide poor nations with $10 billion annually in aid between 2010 and 2012. How to raise this money has now become the question. Jens Stoltenberg, chair of the UN Advisory Group, stated, "One of the great challenges we are facing is to find a balance between public and private funds." Mr. Stoltenberg believes that carbon pricing may be the ideal way to raise revenues, promote cleaner technology development, and decrease pollution. He mentioned emissions trading, emissions allowance auctioning, and both national and international taxes as ways to develop this pricing. Greenpeace recently released a report that shows wind energy as a very viable source for the world to meet its renewable energy goals. The most optimistic scenario predicted by Greenpeace is that by 2020, wind turbines worldwide would meet between 11.5 and 12.3% of worldwide power demands. By the year 2030, this figure would increase to between 18.8 and 21.8%. India is looking to renewable energy to meet future energy demands and control its carbon emissions as its population continues to grow. It is facing large increases in housing and power demands. The country must balance this with the need to reduce carbon emissions by finding alternatives to electricity generated by coal. By 2012, India aims to obtain $21 billion in investments for renewable energy. This will allow the country to increase the percentage contribution of renewable energy, currently 8.8%, to overall power generation. The country already provides loans, tax breaks, and tariff subsidies regarding the renewable industry. That is your energy news for this week. For more headlines, visit us at worldenergymedia.com. This is Jen Tarasevich for Jed Knudsen and Julia Batchison at World Energy Media. Thanks for watching and have a great day.